Hey everyone, it's Scott from Heroic Studios Gaming coming at you once again. Oh, my hair looks terrible today. Oh no. Coming at you once again with another one of my book corners. Today I am opting, instead of continuing the series where I'm talking about the Lone Wolf books, the Lone Wolf Adventure books, this time I'm going to be talking to you about Nameless. Particularly Nameless, the soft cover trade paperback. Apparently there's a hardcover version of it somewhere out there. Which contains an essay by Grant Morrison, who wrote the story and explains some of the bits that are really kind of mind-bending and twisty in the story. I don't know. I have the softcover. This actually took me a lot of effort to get, I guess. So it was published in 2015. It was a 6-part series, and it was published by Image Comics. Which I think I've covered before. I think I've discussed what Image Comics is before, so I think I don't need to talk about it again. If I haven't, then I'll figure that out and I'll post a little thing about it. But anyway, so this story is this like sort of 6-part story. I guess it was intended to be a 12-parter or something. I don't know. One of the websites that was describing it had 12 potential issues listed, but only 6 were ever made. But it was published in 2015. It was then compiled into like this trade paperback and then also into a hardcover trade paperback. And this guy took me like 2 weeks and 3 bookstore attempts to be able to finally get it. Amazon had it, but at like a ridiculous price, and also like 4 weeks for delivery. So I have no idea where it was being shipped from, but it was like listed as if it was being shipped by Amazon from Amazon warehouse. So it was a little confusing. But I decided to go to, I wanted to support one of my local comic shops / bookstores. And there's a bookstore, bookstore here in Portland, Oregon, that is Powell's Books, and they have like a bunch of new books, but they also resell old books. And so I decided I wanted to try to support them because none of the local comic shops possessed it. So I thought, well, they have it because they did. They had it at 2 different stores. And yeah, I went and I first tried to order it so I could pick it up. And there was no response, so I decided to cancel it, go in the store, and grab it, because it said it was on the shelf. It said it was in the superhero section, and should be in alphabetical order. So I went there, and it wasn't there. So I was like, what's going on? Did this get pulled aside already? And they were like, no, it wouldn't have got pulled aside. And so anyway, I went ahead and reordered it. Then after about a week, I messaged him. I was like, why is this still pending? Like, what's going on? Normally orders from like you guys are fulfilled like relatively quickly, especially since you have it on your shelf, supposedly. And they came back with saying that they came back and admitted that they couldn't find it, and they were trying to figure out where it went and what other issues they could find. It was at one of the other stores, they said, so if I wanted to go pick it up there, I could do that and then just cancel the order. And I tried that. It also wasn't on the shelf there. Very weird, which, sort of tracks for the type of story it was. It's a thing, and I'll discuss that in a second. And then, literally the day that I was over at the second store looking through their shelves to see if I could find it and talking to them, and they were like, we can't find it, I get an email from the first shop that's like, hey, we've got it here for you. You can come pick it up anytime. Okay. So I went back to the first store and picked it up from their pickup counter the next day. So then I had it, and it was literally like 2.5 weeks before I finally got it. But, and for a book that was like, in this bookshop that's right next to my work, I took my lunch break to just go over and grab it from the shelves. Like, that's how close it is. And they didn't have it. It took me 2 weeks to get it. So I might as well, I'm glad that I supported the bookshop, but at the same time, it was a bit rough. But, so then I went ahead and read this story, and it's awesome. So first off, let's just talk about the art. First off, the art in this book is amazing. It's pretty good. And it's not like hyper realistic or anything, but you've got these really cool images, and it's really well laid out. And it's very much of like the way you'd expect a movie to sort of play out in the like imagery, where it's like different shots and different back and forths, like future, past, nightmares, like that kind of stuff. It is really well put together. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a like 1 thumb automatically for the artwork without even getting into the story. Just one solid thumb for the artwork. Definitely worth checking out. And if you can get a hold of it, I am debating like selling this copy, but then I'm also like thinking that I should keep this copy because of all the effort I went into, like if I put into trying to get it. Plus it's like nice, like the cover has like this, you can't really see it, but like these little symbols are actually raised up a bit, so they're like you can feel them. They have a tactile touch to them, which is kind of cool. on the front and back. It's yeah, maybe you can see it on the back a little bit better. See how they shine? There's like a different sort of finish to them, so they have a different feel, which is super cool. All right, so anyway, so now let's get into the story. So the story of this comic is about a sort of a drifter occultist who sells his skills essentially to the highest bidder, but has no name and is therefore called Nameless. And this particular drifter is essentially on the run from some incident that occurred in his past, like 13 years before the current date. And that incident was, it involved a place called the Razor House. And it was some sort of incident that we don't really know about. It doesn't really tell us in the very beginning. We have to sort of figure it out as the story goes, and we get pieces of it throughout the comic. But essentially it was, I mean, there's like a brief, like, I was at a thing, lots of people died, and I was the only one survived, right? And that's sort of what we get, like, when someone brings it up. And somebody only brings it up, it's kind of out of nowhere that they bring it up. It's like they seem to know about it a little bit. It's part of the story. That sort of makes sense later. So he's like, yeah, this is what happened, and yeah, it's over now. And so we get this thing where it's like, okay, that's what happened. He lived. So you immediately assume, because he's kind of essentially the good guy. You kind of assume, I mean, despite being like a little bit of an asshole, he's still like the good guy. And he's like an occult warrior, essentially. And so you sort of go, okay, well, I mean, something happened and he lived. Some horrible Call of Cthulhu-esque thing happened based on the way that he's sort of playing it off. It obviously involves aliens. Yeah, so that, like, you're like, okay, cool. And then the story sort of plays out more. And the more it plays out, the more it starts to seem like the story that you're reading is not real. Because it's pretty intense, and it's like kind of weird and twisty and hard to follow at points, especially with the layout. And the sometimes there's a future, sometimes there's like past thrown in, and sometimes there's moments where you can't tell if it's supposed to be the present or the past. So there's this sort of weird mind bendiness to it, and it starts to feel like everything is going weird, not because of weird alien stuff, but maybe it is. Maybe it's weird alien time traveling mind bendy weirdness, which is absolutely possible. But maybe it's something else. And so by the end of the story, it's really twisted and mind bendy, and you don't really know. At the very end, you don't really know, and this is what makes it really well done, is you don't really know if any of it happened, or what if any of it happened, right? And so there's this question about, like, did any of this happen, and how did it happen, and which of the events are real and which are imagined by a crazy lunatic? Because we get the story is being told to us, like, right in the beginning. We get the idea that the narrator is this character, and so we know the story is being told from his point of view. And then we get these sort of weird moments where there's like stuff that shouldn't make sense, like people with fish faces. And it's very Lovecraftian right in the beginning. Right in the beginning, people are going crazy, and there's people with fish faces and stuff like that. And, you know, we've got these alien outsider things and stuff. And so we have this very Lovecraftian thing. The main character's trying to steal a silver key from the Dreamlands. And there's like a lady who runs a gang of sort of men that put on fish heads. They're not really fish men. They're just men with fish masks. And she's like the veiled woman. And it's like weird and mind-bendy and twisty. And this character is telling us these things, and we're just supposed to accept that these things are real. Because he's the occult hero. So we go, this must be real. But by the end of the story, we start to question that, and you really should. And if you read the whole story thinking that he's telling the truth the whole time, then you're not reading it right. Because if you start realizing that maybe he's in a Lovecraftian way, an unreliable narrator, then it starts to look different. It starts to look like the story is something else, and much like the thing on the doorstep, the main character is sort of telling us his version of what he thinks happened, which isn't necessarily accurate. Just like in Thing on the Doorstep, like the main character is trying to tell the police why he murdered somebody and why it was the right thing to do, and that leads us to question whether or not that person is just trying to get out of it, whether they're lying or they're crazy. And by the end of this book, if you have that sort of mindset, then you will get a lot out of this book, because it makes a lot more sense if you're thinking of it that way than it does trying to read it all the way through. It's like, I don't really understand what's going on. I'm lost. And I did get lost. And then I thought, wait, maybe he's an unreliable narrator. And when that happened, my mind was just like, and the story just like took a whole nother level. And I should have realized going into it with Grant Morrison, I should have realized that was probably accurate. And I didn't think about it, because he's a really good writer and he likes to throw layers of symbolism into things. And so I didn't really think about that until like 3/4 of the way through. And then when it hit me, I had to go back and just like go, okay, wait, hold on. Let me start over like earlier on when things start to get a little trippy, and start thinking about the unreliable narrator business. And then it started to like have like there's a couple of different moving parts, and I'm not sure which of the moving parts I should be paying attention to. And then in the end, it all sort of tied together, and I was like, I see. So it's actually really well done. And so I'm just gonna I'm not going to spoil anything for you, because I don't want to spoil it too much, because I may have spoiled it too much already. But essentially, like, I'm just going to give it 2 thumbs up and tell you to go read it. If you really like this kind of like sort of unreliable narrator, mind-bendy story, it's self-contained, it's well done, it's finished, there's not going to be any more. And you can get this one, if you can find it, the softcover trade paperback, or you can get the hardcover, which has an essay by Grant Morrison who explains some of the occult symbolism. There's a ton of occult symbolism, so I'll tell you that won't spoil anything. There's a ton of occult symbolism in this book, and some of it's stuff that I already knew, because I like researching that kind of stuff and alternate religions and stuff. And some of it I was like, I have never heard of this before. I'm gonna go Google it, and then spent like 10-20 minutes down like the Wikipedia rabbit hole trying to like find out more about stuff, and like going off to like look into various things. So I mean, I learned some stuff, which I was like, well, that's cool, I didn't know that. So that's great. But so his essay sort of explains some of the layers of symbolism and how that played out in the story in a way that isn't just like the obvious sign of like, I use the symbol in the story to be like a thing. It was like, this actually represents this particular aspect of the storytelling of the story. And it's like, oh, I haven't read the essay. I have just heard people talk about the essay and what the essay did to their minds when it like their minds were blown first, and then their minds were blown again when they read the essay, and like the reasons, like their favorite bits. And so I've been able to get pieces of it, but it doesn't exist anywhere except inside the hardcover, and so I have to go find it if I want to read the essay. And I'm not gonna. I already like put a lot of effort in getting this one. I don't think I want to try to like put effort into finding that one. So if anyone finds it, hey, like scan me a copy of the essay so I can read it. But that's it. That's all I'm going to say. It's a really great book. I give it 2 thumbs up. Go buy it. It is, if you can, it should be somewhere between $13 and $15. I paid $15 for it. But I also had like drove around to like 2 different stores, and like also had to do like this thing where I emailed a couple people. And so like, there was a little bit of extra money that went into trying to obtain it. So there's that. But if you have the time, then you might as well just order it on Amazon and then wait the like month to get it. And then you'll pay like $14 for it. So that's a bonus, right? That's it. So that's all for me. I hope to see you guys later. And next time we'll be talking about Jiangxi. I can't talk for some. My mouth is all dry because I was just working out. So that's it. I'll see you later. End screen and fade. And fade again.